Before we continue with the video and my further explanation about Kelsey Plum, officially traded, and Aja Wilson, Furious Las Vegas, Aces Indiana Fever, WNBA Caitlyn Clark, I want to ask for your help. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subs by the end of the year, so I'd really appreciate it if you would subscribe and help me out. Okay, let's continue.
The Seattle Storm are sending Jewel Loyd to the Las Vegas Aces in a blockbuster three-team trade that moves Kelsey Plum to the LA Sparks. That's according to ESPN. As part of the deal, Seattle receives the second pick in this year's WNBA draft from LA in exchange for the Storm's number 9 pick, while the Aces also receive the 13th pick, a second-round selection from the Sparks.
Looks like what happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. Just ask Kelsey Plum, who's leaving the bright lights of Sin City for the star-studded streets of Los Angeles. But hey, at least she won't have to deal with Aja Wilson's ego anymore.
Loyd is a 6-time All-Star and 2-time champ with Seattle, while Plum is a 3-time All-Star with 2 titles of her own out in Las Vegas.
In a shocking turn of events, the Star Guard has been traded to the LA Sparks in a 3-team deal that sent shockwaves through the WNBA. But this isn't just about one player leaving. It's about the unraveling of the Las Vegas Aces. Are we witnessing the fall of an empire, and who's really to blame? For this, are you ready? Let's go.
Loyd to Vegas, Plum to LA. Just how does this maybe impact the landscape of the Western Conference? And I kind of want to also throw in the league as a whole, getting some of these big pieces now in new places.
Picture this. You're scrolling through your phone, minding your own business, when suddenly, bam, the news hits you. Like a fast break Kelsey Plum, the sharpshooter extraordinaire, is leaving the Las Vegas Aces. But wait, there's more. She's not just leaving. She's been traded to the LA Sparks in a blockbuster 3-team deal that's got the entire WNBA buzzing.
We have been hearing for a little while the reporting of Annie Costabile at the Chicago Sun-Times, as well as Roberta Rodriguez with Beta Basket. We've been hearing that Jewel Loyd, especially after the investigation with the Seattle Storm, was likely on the move. And then, of course, Kelsey Plum was cored by the Aces, though she was considered, and still is technically considered, one of the top draws in free agency as an unrestricted free agent.
Let's break this down, because it's not just any old trade. This is the kind of move that sends shockwaves through the league. Plum to the Sparks, Jewel Loyd to the Aces, and the Sparks' coveted number 2 draft pick to the Storm. It's like a high-stakes game of musical chairs, but with superstars as the players.
Have 2 names like that, 2 Olympians, just won gold in Paris. They are going to, as you said, draw a lot of assets. And when you see a 3-team trade, obviously this was about as many teams as possible, but especially the Seattle Storm and the Las Vegas Aces being able to get value.
Now you might be scratching your head, wondering why the Aces would let go of a talent like Plum. Well, that's the million-dollar question that's got everyone talking. Remember, those whispers about tension between Plum and Aja Wilson. Looks like there might have been some fire behind that smoke.
It reminds me a lot of you. Like, you say it's not really about me. And she knows how her privilege has gotten her to that point. And also, like, she's good at basketball, obviously. But, like, she understands her privilege. It's like what pushes her over the top, in a sense. It reminds me a lot of you. And I mean, that's a compliment.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Plum isn't just looking for a quick change of scenery. Reports are saying she's eyeing a long-term stay with the Sparks, possibly beyond the 2025 season. It's like she's not just changing teams, she's changing her entire career trajectory.
I think what we have seen in the WNBA, especially with the last collective bargaining agreement that the league is still under, though negotiating right now, we've seen a lot more player autonomy and movement, and that makes things really exciting.
And the Aces, they're not just swapping one star for another by bringing in Loyd. They're adding yet another piece to their championship puzzle. But is it the right piece? That's the question on everyone's minds. Lloyd's joining a team that's been absolutely dominant, snagging back-to-back championships in 2022 and 2023. But will her style mesh with Asia Wilson and the rest of the aces? Star-studded lineup.
Go back to the Aces just very briefly, because you talked about how they were trying to get that three-peat, but instead now maybe seeking to compete for their third championship in the last 4 years, and certainly looking to build that core around Asia Wilson. But just what does Jewell Loyd kind of add to now what the Aces are trying to build here?
Some analysts are raising eyebrows at the Aces' decision. Plum and Loyd might have similar skill sets. But there are whispers about Lloyd's recent shooting performance. Is this a case of the Aces being too confident in their ability to make any player fit their system?
Loyd, again, has a very similar skill set in a lot of ways to Kelsey Plum. I think of players that can play that number 2 guard in particular, maybe have the ball in their hands a time or two. But with Jewell Loyd, her execution from the corner is lethal. And with Jewell Loyd, we saw that even at the Olympics, there was some controversy there with how she was utilized, or in fact, how she was not utilized by head coach Cheryl Reeve for Team USA. And then again, there were a few things going on with Seattle, and we saw a little bit of her productivity and specifically her efficiency dip.
But let's not forget about the sparks in all this. They're not just getting a disgruntled star, they're getting a motivated one. Plum's looking for a fresh start, and Law might just be the perfect place for her to reignite her career. Could this be the move that finally puts the Sparks back in playoff contention? After a disappointing season,
people thought they could be in contention to over and usurp the Houston Comets for that 4-peat. Of course, that didn't come to pass. The New York Liberty are champions, let's not forget. But I think it's just a little bit of a different culture change. And I think with that, it means that Kelsey Plum, if she does go to LA, will be utilized for some of her experience and her leadership.
All right. Let's talk about the domino effect of this trade. You thought it was just about Plum Loyd and a draft pick. Think again. This move is reshaping the entire WNBA landscape. And we're about to see some serious shockwaves.
Will be paired alongside last year's number 2 overall pick, Cameron Brink, who was off to a fantastic rookie year before that season-ending injury. I mean, that's a 3-time All-Star. We talk about 2 titles, but just looking at her joining that, what kind of expertise, what kind of knowledge, what can that really do for, I don't want to use this, but what kind of spark can that be for the Sparks out there in LA? I had to use it.
Picture this. The LA Sparks, who were stuck in the basement last season, just catapulted themselves into the spotlight. They've got Kelsey Plum now, and she's not just any player. We're talking about a sharpshooter who's been itching to be the main star. And guess what in LA? She's got her chance.
I think you're right. With Cameron Brink coming back, hopefully very healthy from injury, as you mentioned, she was a dynamic force for that LA team. I think it's the overall organization and some of the things, again, that this is a legacy franchise. The Los Angeles Sparks played in the first ever WNBA basketball game. And again, we've seen other teams just build a little bit more infrastructure around their players.
But here's where it gets interesting. The Sparks didn't just gain a star. They gave up their golden ticket, that number 2 draft pick. It could have been their chance to snag a generational talent like Olivia Miles or Paige Beckers. We're talking about the kind of players that change franchises overnight, but the Sparks are betting on the here and now, rolling the dice on Plum's star power.
I heard a time or two the phrase hybrid rebuilds come into play. They have a new coach. They are going to have now, as has been reported, a new player in Kelsey Plum. So I think the leadership from Plum, and I think maybe the reset for Kelsey Plum, being in a new environment, maybe taking on a different role, because she's coming from the Las Vegas Aces.
Now, let's talk about the Aces they swapped Plum for Loyd. And on paper, it looks like a fair trade. But dig a little deeper, and you'll see the cracks. Lloyd's coming off a season where her shot wasn't falling like it used. To her shot quality, a measly 36% compared to Plum's 43%. That's not just a small dip, it's a canyon-sized gap.
She was on the Olympic team, of course, has been with the Aces for some years. She just had her jersey retired by her alma mater in Washington. So there's a lot of great things. And I do want to say, I was in Paris for the Summer Olympics, and we got to speak to Kelsey Plum. She had a few things off the court going on, and she talked about just leaning into her faith and being so blessed, and just kind of almost laughing at all of the things that were going on outside of basketball.
But that's not all. The Aces might have just messed with their secret sauce. Plum wasn't just a scorer, she was a playmaker. She made everyone around her better now they've got a pure score in Lloyd. But who's going to set up those easy buckets? The Aces' offensive chemistry could be in for a rough ride, especially when you have Wilson that demands the ball all the time. And then there's the Seattle Storm. They're sitting pretty with that number 2 pick, grinning, like they've just hit the jackpot. You know what they might have. This could be the start of a whole new era in Seattle. Imagine Paige Beckers in a Storm. Jersey, that's the kind of player you build a franchise around.
The Las Vegas Aces, who they have a few moving pieces and moving parts. You can't always keep a championship team together.
Here's the reality. This trade isn't just changing 3 teams. It's shifting the balance of power in the entire WNBA. The Sparks are now dark horse contenders. The Storm are loading up for the future, and the Aces, well, they might have just opened the door for the rest of the league. And let's not forget that other favorites are still looming, such as the Indiana Fever, New York Liberty, and Minnesota. Lynx, the 2025 seasons just got more exciting. But hold up, we're not done yet, because the real losers in all this, it might just be the Aces and their so-called superstar Asia. Wilson, think about it, they just lost a younger, more efficient player in Plum. And let's be real, Plum was the engine that made that Aces offense purr. Without her, Wilson's going to have to work a lot harder for those easy buckets.
I don't know for sure, but I wonder if also this is maybe just a really important, even personal reset for Kelsey Plum. And again, there have been reports that the same could be in play here for Jewell Loyd.
Yeah, that puts things certainly in a different perspective, at least for her in her career.
And here's a wild thought. What if this is just the beginning of the AC's downfall? We've already seen key players. Jumping ship Alicia Clark and Tiffany Hayes are free agents. Kate Martin's packed her bags for San Francisco. It's starting to look less like a dynasty and more like a sinking ship. Remember, that saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, not when it comes to the Aces drama. This team was on top of the world. They had it all. The championships, the superstars, the MVP. But now it's like watching a high-stakes poker game where everyone's folding.
We have to get better. We have to really take a sharp look at ourselves, look ourselves in the mirror, see our shortcomings, and then, you got to make the moves necessary, whatever that means, to put the best product that we possibly can. It's not going to be the same group probably next year. It just won't. And I'm sad about that because I really like that group. They were a pain in my ass, but I was a pain in their ass too.
Let's talk about the Aces off Sion first GM. Natalie Williams gets shown the exit. And here's where it gets interesting months later. Her seat's still empty. It's like they're playing musical chairs. But the music stopped and nobody's sitting down. But that's not all, folks. The coaching staff, they're jumping ship too. 2 top assistants decide to peace out for so-called bigger opportunities. Now Natalie Naz heading to the shiny new Golden State Valkyries. That makes sense, but Tyler Marsh, trading in the glitz of Vegas for the mess that is the Chicago sky. And Angel Reese, something smells fishy in Vegas.
What's going on in their locker room? Like, this Aces team is falling apart. This is not a coach that I would want to play for.
And now, the cherry on top of this disaster. Sunday, Kelsey Plum's gone. Are you seeing a pattern here? Because Becky Hammond sure is, and she's not happy. In fact, she's been dropping some truth bombs that are making waves. Here's where it gets really juicy. The Aces' performance last season. Let's just say it was about as consistent as a roulette wheel in a critical game. 4 loss to New York. Plum, along with Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, managed to score only 28 points combined. And Asia Wilson wasn't happy at all.
I'm going to go out there and I'm going to try to be the best. I get y'all saying best player in the world. That's great. It looks great. But I want to be the best person. I want to be the best teammate, because that's how I get the best out of my team.
But wait, there's more. Remember the Deary, a hammy situation that little debacle cost the Aces. Their 2025 first-round pick. Talk about playing with a stacked deck against yourself. Remember when everyone thought Asia Wilson was the unbeatable superstar of the Aces? Well, it looks like her reign might be coming to an end, faster than you can say. Dynasty, let's talk about Wilson for a second. She's supposed to be the face of the franchise, right? The one who can carry the team through thick and thin. But here's where it gets interesting. Will had a historic season, becoming the first player in WNBA history to score 1,000 points in a single season. She even set the single-season scoring average record at 26.9 points per game. Impressive, right?
Everybody can be good here and there, but who can be great every single game, every possession? And that's what I'm striving for.
But hold on, because that's not the whole story. While Wilson was busy breaking records, the Aces were falling apart at the seams. Bet she's kicking her yourself. Now picture this. It's the playoffs and tensions are running. High coach Becky Hammond calls a timeout. Frustrated with her team's performance. She says, I called a timeout because I was frustrated with us. It wasn't the refs. It wasn't the liberty. It was about how we were playing. We know we're better than that. Ouch, that's got a sting, especially for Wilson, who's supposed to be leading the charge.
The whole league has been pissed off for the last 8 months, and my players are in commercials and this and that and being freaking celebrities, and you get distracted.
But wait, there's more. Hammond's not pulling any punches. She's calling out players for wanting to be celebrities more than basketball players. Wonder who she's talking about. Maybe a certain record-breaking star who's been more focused on her stats than her team's success. Hammond dropped this bomb. It's not going to be the same group. Probably next year, it just won't talk about a vote of no confidence. The Aces aren't just losing players. They're losing their identity, while the Aces are crumbling like a house of cards. Another team is quietly building a fortress. Remember the Indiana Fever, the perennial underdogs? Well, they're not playing around anymore. What if I told you they're assembling a dream team that could change the face of the WNBA?
Something about the way she plays the game, her passing, her shooting, that people really identify with. I really feel like we're poised and we're set up for a great, successful next era of Fever basketball.
Let's talk about the movie they're making. Kelly Krakoff is back as team president. This isn't just any executive. She's the architect who built the Fever into a powerhouse. Before now, she's back to do it again. But that's not all they've brought in Amber Cox as general manager. Cox is a league insider with a keen eye for talent. And here's where it gets really interesting. Stephanie White is returning as head coach. White knows this team inside and out, and she's got the chops to lead them to glory. And you know what? All of this is just setting the stage for their crown jewel. Caitlyn Clark, you've heard of her, right? The basketball phenom who's been shattering records. Left and right, 62 records broken in her freshman WNBA season. That's not just good, that's otherworldly.
We are at a point where we have an attractive group, we have a great organization, we can attract a few free agents to come here and bolster and keep us on the path that we're on.
This new front office isn't just making moves for next season, they're building a dynasty. They're not just building a team, they're creating an entire system focused on culture. And it all starts with a generational talent, such as Clark, as well as stars, such as Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hole. It's like watching a master chess player set up the board for a spectacular checkmate. Are you ready for this? While everyone's been focused on the Aces drama, the Fever have been quietly positioning themselves as the next big thing in the WNBA. They're not just planning to compete, they're planning to dominate. And with Clark leading the charge, supported by a top-notch front office and coaching staff, they just might pull it off.
The future is so bright, and our ultimate goal is to hang another banner in the field house. And our ultimate goal is to come back in here after we win that championship and celebrate again like we did in 2012.
The WNBA landscape is shifting faster than a crossover dribble. We're witnessing the fall of an empire and the rise of new contenders. The Aces dynasty, it's looking shakier than a rookie. First free throw. But here's where it gets really interesting. The upcoming draft picture. This top prospects like Paige Beckers and Olivia Miles are about to storm the league and the Seattle Storm. They're sitting pretty with that number 2 pick. Talk about a game changer. So what's next? Who's going to come out on top in 2025? It's anyone's guess. But one thing's for sure. This season is going to be wilder than a buzzer beater in overtime. Are you ready for the show? Because the WNBA is about to bring the heat. Like never before. Do you agree? Let us know in the comments. Like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you never miss out. Click the video on the screen, and we will see you in the next one.